He looked out, however, not on the lawns and walks of a sanitarium but upon a wide boulevard of what was obviously a populous city, and for a moment again, Joe Prentera felt the depths of nausea. This was not his world. He stared for a long, long moment. The cars didn't even have wheels, he noted dully. He turned slowly and faced the older man. Reston Farrell said compassionately, "Try this, it's excellent cognac." Joe Prentera stared at him, said finally, flatly, "What's it all about?" The other put down the unaccepted glass. "We were afraid first. Realization would be a shock to you," he said. "My colleague is in the adjoining room. We will be glad to explain to you if you will join us there." "I want to get out of here," Joe said. "Where would you go?" The fear of police, of Al Rossi's vengeance, of the measures that might be taken by Big Louis on his failure were now far away. Reston Farrell had approached the door by which he had entered and it reopened for him. He went through it without looking back. There was nothing else to do. Joe dressed, then followed him. Casters. In the adjoining room was a circular table that would have accommodated a dozen persons. Two were seated there now, papers, books and soiled coffee cups before them. There had evidently been a long wait. Reston Farrell, the one Joe had already met, was tall and drawn of face, and with a chain smoker's nervousness. The other was heavier and more at ease. They were both, Joe estimated, somewhere in their middle 50s. They both looked like docs. He wondered all over again if this was some kind of pressure cooker. But that didn't explain the view from the window. Reston Farrell said, "May I present my colleague, Citizen Warren? Brett James." "Warren, this is our guest from yesteryear, Mr. Joseph Salviati Prentera." Brett James nodded to him, friendly so far as Joe could see. He said gently, "I think it would be Mr. Joseph Prentera, wouldn't it?" The maternal lineage was almost universally ignored. His voice too gave the impression he was speaking a language not usually on his tongue. Joe took an empty chair, hardly bothering to note its salient qualities. His body seemed to fit into the piece of furniture as though it had been molded to his order. Joe said, "I think maybe I'll take that there drink, Doc." Reston Farrell said, "Of course," and then something else Joe didn't get. Whatever the something else was, a slot opened in the middle of the table and a glass, so clear of texture as to be all but invisible, was elevated. It contained possibly 3 ounces of golden fluid. Joe didn't allow himself to think of its means of delivery. He took up the drink and bolted it. He put the glass down and said carefully, "What's it all about, huh?" Warren, Brett James said soothingly, "Prepare yourself for somewhat of a shock, Mr. Prentera. You are no longer in Los Angeles. Ya think I'm stupid? I can see that. I was about to say Los Angeles of 1960. Mr. Prentera, we welcome you to Nuevo Los Angeles." "Ta where?" "To Nuevo Los Angeles and to the year." Brett James looked at his companion. "What is the date, old calendar?" 2133, Reston Farrell said. 2133 AD they would say. Joe Prentera looked from one of them to the other, scowling. "What are you guys talking about?" Warren, Brett James said softly, "Mr. Prentera, you are no longer in the year 1960, you are now in the year 2133. He said uncomprehendingly, "You mean I've been, unconscious for?" He let the sentence fall away as he realized the impossibility. Brett James said gently, "Hardly for 170 years, Mr. Prentera." Reston Farrell said, I am afraid we are confusing you. Briefly, we have. Underline transported underline you, I suppose one might say, from your own era to ours. Joe Prentera had never been exposed to the concept of time travel. He